Hi everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel Dr. Srinivas Medical Concepts and my FB page Dr. Srinivas Concepts. This is Dr. Srinivas, neurologist from Andhra Pradesh, India. I am also the medical author of the book Focused Neurology. Today we are going to talk about a very important practical topic, cerebral autoregulation. We need to know about cerebral autoregulation, especially for the neuro-intensive care. What is autoregulation? What is the cerebral autoregulation? We see this diagram. The cerebral perfusion pressure is maintained constant at a constant rate even over a wide range of systemic blood pressures. Even if the systemic blood pressure is at 50 or if it is increased to 150, the cerebral perfusion is maintained at a constant level. How is this being maintained? How is the brain able to regulate its circulation and cerebral perfusion? When the blood pressure starts increasing, the arterioles start constricting, and therefore the cerebral blood flow is limited. On the contrary, when the blood pressure starts decreasing from 150 to 50, the cerebral arterioles start dilating to increase the cerebral blood flow. So such an excellent compensatory mechanisms going on in the brain to maintain a constant cerebral perfusion pressure across a wide range of the systemic blood pressure. Because of this, a constant cerebral perfusion pressure is being maintained despite variations in systemic blood pressure. So autoregulation refers to the physiologic response whereby cerebral blood flow is regulated via alterations in the cerebrovascular resistance in order to maintain perfusion over wide physiological changes such as neuronal activation or hemodynamic changes. Seizures, when there is seizure activity, there will be increased blood flow, or a hypoperfusion, a hypotension, there will be decreased blood flow. Despite these changes, a constant cerebral perfusion pressure is being maintained. This is autoregulation. It is trying to regulate its own blood circulation. The autoregulation. So what is autoregulation exactly? It's a constant perfusion across a wide range of systemic blood pressure. How is this being maintained? You can see in this diagram, we have cerebral blood flow on the y-axis and the mean arterial pressure on the x-axis. Here the 50 millimeters of mercury, and here is shown is the 150 millimeters of mercury. When the blood pressure is markedly decreased, coming to 50 millimeters of mercury, so the blood pressure is decreased. So brain is trying to maximally increase the blood flow to the brain because the blood pressure is decreased. So how does this do? It starts dilating the arterioles, the cerebral arterioles. A maximum dilatation takes place. Because of this arterial dilatation, there is an increased blood flow. So if the blood pressure decreases, the brain, beautifully compensates. The mother nature has given a good compensatory mechanism to the brain by dilating the cerebral arterioles. So if the blood pressure starts decreasing, the arterioles start dilating so that the blood flow is increased. Now we'll take another situation where the blood pressure is on the higher side, 150 millimeters of mercury. So in order to maintain again a constant blood flow, now the arteriolar size starts decreasing. It becomes very small. It constricts a lot to decrease the cerebral blood flow. Otherwise, because of increased blood pressure, there could be devastating changes going on in the brain. So the hypoperfusion, the hypotension is also not good for the brain. Hypertension is also not good for the brain. So despite these blood pressure changes, the brain tries to maintain a constant cerebral perfusion pressure across the wide variations of the blood pressure. This is the intact autoregulation. Because of this intact autoregulation, the cerebral perfusion pressure is being maintained and we don't suffer from any vascular pathophysiologic mechanisms. But in conditions like head injury or ischemic stroke, the autoregulation gets impaired. The autoregulation suffers a lot, it gets impaired. So there is impairment of autoregulation in conditions like severe head injury. So again you see here the cerebral blood flow y-axis and the mean arterial pressure x-axis. But here you can see it is not a constant curve like the intact autoregulation. The curve starts increasing as the mean arterial pressure increases. So the cerebral blood flow starts increasing as the mean arterial pressure increases. So the cerebral blood flow becomes pressure dependable throughout. So what happens when there's an impaired autoregulation? Example, the head injury or stroke. The moment blood pressure increases, the blood flow increases and hyperperfusion disorders take place, which is disastrous for the brain. Likewise, when the blood pressure falls, there is decreased blood flow to the brain, again resulting in deleterious consequences. So because of the intact autoregulatory mechanisms, we are able to maintain a constant cerebral perfusion pressure despite variations in systemic blood pressure which occurs on a time-to-time basis. Anything can change systemic blood pressure, but if the cerebral perfusion keeps changing according to the systemic blood pressure, then the brain gets affected with deleterious consequences. So Mother Nature has given a wonderful protective mechanisms to the brain in the form of autoregulation, wherein there is intact a constant cerebral perfusion pressure despite decreased blood pressure or an increased blood pressure. When there is decreased blood pressure, arterioles start dilating, trying to increase the blood flow. When there is increased blood pressure, arterioles start constricting to decrease the blood flow. This is the intact autoregulation. So what is the pathophysiology of autoregulation? Brain tissue requires constant perfusion in order to ensure adequate delivery of the substrate. Brain requires a constant perfusion in order to ensure adequate supply to the brain, adequate delivery of the substrates to the brain. These autoregulatory mechanisms occur in the microcirculation, in the arteriolar level, and therefore it cannot be picked up by angiography. These autoregulatory changes occur in the microcirculation and are mediated by changes below the resolution which are seen in angiography. So angiography cannot pick up these autoregulatory mechanisms because they occur at a very minute level, the arteriolar level, which cannot be picked up by angiography. A very important correlation occurs between PaCO2, acidosis and cerebral blood flow. As the PaCO2 increases, hypercapnia, and the acidosis increases, hypercapnia causes vasodilatation and increased cerebral blood flow. On the contrary, hypocapnia, decreased PaCO2, and alkalosis causes a decrease in cerebral blood flow. So a decrease in PaCO2 decreases cerebral blood flow. This we take advantage for our therapeutic intervention, especially in raised intracranial pressure. So when there's a raised intracranial pressure, the pressure in the brain is increased so much so that it cannot expand further because of the overlying skull and can result in ischemia of the brain or herniation. So to decrease one of these three components, the three components which constitute the entire compartment is, one is the brain about 1400 and CSF about 150 ml and blood 150 ml. Since there is overlying skull, it cannot expand. So what we do as treatment, we try to decrease one of the components of this, brain, CSF and blood. So we can decrease the blood volume. How do we decrease the cerebral blood flow? By decreasing PaCO2. How do we decrease PaCO2? By hyperventilation. When we make the patient to hyperventilation, PaCO2 decreases, and because PaCO2 decreases, the cerebral blood flow decreases and person's intracranial pressure also decreases. So if we understand autoregulation, we can take it to a therapeutic advantage to treat intracranial pressure. But we have to be careful when we hyperventilate patients to reduce cerebral blood flow and decrease intracranial pressure. Because if we decrease too much, less than 30 PaCO2, there will be severe decrease in cerebral blood flow, so much so that it can cause ischemia. So we have to be careful. So understanding autoregulation allows us to take it to our therapeutic advantage, especially in the treatment of intracranial pressure. The two common disorders which impair autoregulations are, one, the traumatic brain injury, and second, the severe focal form of the cerebral ischemia. These two impair the autoregulation. So it's a wonderful protective mechanism, how the brain regulates its own circulation despite varied blood pressures, and how understanding autoregulation we can take it to a therapeutic advantage of decreasing blood flow by decreasing PaCO2, by increasing the hyperventilation, and thus finally decreasing the intracranial pressure. So these are the fascinating concepts of autoregulation. I've enjoyed giving this lecture and I hope you have also enjoyed listening to my lecture. If you have any suggestions or comments, kindly post onto my YouTube channel. But please like and subscribe my YouTube channel, Dr. Srinivas Medical Concepts, and my FB page, Dr. Srinivas Concepts. Thank you. Bye.